Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Liberty Libations number 28. Gosh, we're almost to number 30. This is crazy. We're catching up to Free Georgia podcast pretty quick with all my missed weeks of putting that out. So, welcome. We've got Steven with us today. We've got Zane, and we've got Nick, who's just now sitting down. And we've got Jamie producing in the background.
Starting on time.
Yeah, that's definitely my fault. All right. Sláinte, y'all. Cheers. All
Cheers.
right. I'm drinking coffee because it's only 6 p.m. where I am right now. So
Yeah, your internet sucks still.
Did I freeze already?
Yeah. Taking it right when you were taking a sip, it was not a very flattering frame.
That's all right. I can live with that. Well, y'all, thank y'all for joining us. Thank y'all for tuning in. If any of this live stream interests you, entertains you, makes you think, makes you question what you know, reach out to us. You can reach out to any of us on Twitter. You can reach out to podcast@lpgeorgia.com. You can go to lpgeorgia.com and learn a whole bunch of stuff about the Libertarian Party of Georgia. If you are interested in coming on the show, you can message me at podcast@lpgeorgia.com, and I'll send that on to Zach so he can screen you, because if you're too normal and too based in reality, you cannot come on this show. That's just not who we're trying to attract to this show. So it's for weirdos only. All right, y'all. Let's dive into the topics. I believe the first one up, Jamie. Let's put that up
the
on
Rick
the
Ross
screen.
car show.
It's the Rick Ross car show. So, Steven, I'm going to let you take this one since it's in your county, and some just stupidity is going on in that county right now.
I think I got some lag here. I might have to back out and come back in just a minute, but I'll go ahead and give it a try.
Yeah.
So the pastor of this church is also the president of the Georgia Baptist Commission or Baptist Convention, sorry. And they've had their little arts and crafts show, I think, for 20 something years now. And the church has been in the county for almost 200 years. And so now all of a sudden, they put out a sign saying that, that they were going to have their arts and crafts show. And some marshal came up and said, "Hey, you got to have a permit for this." And this has never been an issue the entire time. So they apply for the permit, and then the zoning department comes back and says, "Well, we can't give you a permit because you're not zoned for this use." And then he comes back and he says, "Well, I've been using it like this the entire time we've been here. We're going to have it anyways." And I wasn't there, but I have a friend that was there, and I heard the sheriff was actually there showing off cars.
So if you've got the guy who's there to enforce the law showing off his cars at the illegal event, what are you supposed to do about that?
Re-elect the sheriff.
Yeah, exactly. Good call, Zane. Oh man,
In parallel news down there. So if you go to Rick Ross's Twitter, someone parachuted into his car show instead of paying the couple $100s for admittance.
Wait,
and Rick Ross's response was, "If you have a video of it, send it to me. If you come over my wall, I'ma do you dirty," is what he said. "But if you parachute in, just let me know when you're landing."
That's amazing. That is amazing. Okay. Interesting. Let's see. So I don't know anything. I mean, there's always something happening in Fayette County, it seems, or Steven just is the one who does the most amount of research on his own county. So he's always the one that submits these stories to us. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's something just bizarre about what did you say he was on? The guy who was part of the county administrator. You said he was on like the Baptist whatever.
I'm getting some serious lag. I'm gonna back out and come back in.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Sounds good. I think he said he was on the Baptist Convention Committee or something like that, which is just bizarre. This whole story is bizarre. Why can't you have a car show on your own parking lot, out of view? It says in the article, it's basically out of view of the street. Like, I just don't understand why. And the sheriff is attending your event with his own product. It's
Because
absolutely
you need a
ridiculous.
permit license.
You need a permit. You need a permit license. I guess that's correct. All right. Jamie, what's the next story? Okay. Let's get some audio on this sucker. Found this incredibly entertaining.
Come on, y'all! Let's hear it for James Comey! We love the FBI! We love the federal government! What? You guys what? You don't love the FBI? You guys don't appreciate James Comey weaponizing the government against Donald Trump? Come on, James!
This guy does such a good job at keeping this up.
You should be happy Comey weaponized the government against Trump.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right, everyone.
The cop is literally smiling as he's telling him to sit down. Look, the cop gives him a thumbs up at the end. It's amazing. I mean, that's incredible. First of all, why is he in Austin? How is that a public library? And
That's tax money being put to use.
I mean, it's being put to great use. And
You got to have a place for the drag queen story hours.
You have to, and it has to look nice. And gives him a thumbs up and is just smiling from ear to ear the entire time. Makes me so happy. Yeah. And I don't know who this guy is. Does anybody know who this guy is?
Owen Schroyer?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an InfoWars guys. He's an InfoWars guy.
Okay.
I think he got charged. What did he get charged with? Was it in connection with 1/6? With January 6th, because that was worse than Pearl Harbor and 9/11 combined.
He got charged with something there?
I think so. Like they were going after him, because I don't even think he went into the Capitol or anything. I can't remember the whole story, but yeah, I think he was tied up in that a little bit. And
well, yeah,
he's a host on InfoWars. And
InfoWars. I thought you said antiwar.com.
No, InfoWars.
Okay, well that makes sense why he's in Austin then, because he's there with Alex Jones. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I love these videos. I love how many are popping up on the internet. And I love how no one tells him to stop for a very long time. Like he is able to just continue to rattle off things that Comey did that people either don't know or completely take for granted or don't care about. And he's just able to rattle them off one after the other for, what is it, over a minute, and then gets a thumbs up from the cop. It's who's the other guy that keeps doing this all over the country?
Oh, Alex Stein.
Alex Stein is one of them for sure. There's a Latino looking kid who keeps doing it as well.
Nick Fuentes.
Vega.
Vega. Yeah. It's not Nick Fuentes. I've not seen a video with Nick Fuentes doing this. But yeah, Steven, sorry you missed it, buddy. I'm sure you watched it. Were you the one that put before?
Was that the one that did what now?
Were you the one that put this video in the chat before?
No, that wasn't me. I have seen this though.
Yeah, I mean it's freaking phenomenal. Who does that podcast? It's the Liberty what? The Liberty Breakfast?
Broadcast.
Oh, the Liberty Broadcast. Who does that? Do we know?
No.
Let's see. News, current
Click
events,
on that website.
Illuminati weather on Illuminati weather. This sounds like it's right up our alley.
All right.
Yeah, take us to that website, Zach. I want to see it.
But they're on Central Time, so they're probably not important.
Oh,
well, what does that say about Mountain Time?
Less so, even than that. That's like the least used time.
Oh, goodness gracious. Interesting. All right. Well,
There's like one major city on Mountain Time.
Denver?
Yeah, who else?
That's a good question. Is there anyone else?
Is El Paso considered major?
I think Phoenix is
No.
on Mountain Time.
Yeah, Phoenix is on Mountain Time. That would
Is it?
count. Maybe
Phoenix is
Santa,
actually
Santa
bigger than
Day.
Denver.
Okay.
I thought Phoenix might have been on.
Oh yeah, Phoenix sways presidential elections.
This conversation is quickly getting extremely boring.
Well, we don't have Alden to take us to the really bizarre stuff tonight, which is a huge bummer. But we have Steve.
Speculate? Who
What?
wants to speculate on the Ukrainian dam?
Oh, I didn't even bring that up as a topic tonight, but we can get into that for sure.
That should
It was
probably
it was amazing how he had this series of tweets almost pre-prepared.
Mm.
You know how it was Zelensky himself breaking the news. I thought that was kind of weird.
Well, right, and you look at it, and it's kind of a who benefits situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every article is like, "Hey, this is the water supply that goes to the Russian-occupied parts and goes to Crimea." Oh yeah, and Russia blew it up. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, it was the same thing they were saying with the Nord Stream pipeline. Like
That was my second. That's where I went to second. I literally was walking out the door to go to work the other morning, and the TV was on, and I was like, all I saw was damn in Ukraine blood up. I'm like, oh geez, they did it again, huh?
I mean, it just
Yep.
makes no sense. Like, I don't understand how people believe that Russia would hurt their own pipeline. Like, it just makes no sense. Like the just face value of logic, that one didn't make any sense. And you're right. The fact that they already had stuff prepared for this dam breaking, and I mean, stuff came out immediately. Like the amount of coverage for the dam breaking that I saw on Twitter within, I don't know, 6 hours of it actually happening was unreal. Like they had tons of cameras there. There were cameras all over the place. I saw like 10 different.
They had
views.
shots showing like a day or two before that the road across it was damaged already. So I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Another weird story for sure.
Yeah.
But
Zach, what do we got next, buddy?
Well, while we're waiting on him, the Fayette County thing, Rick Ross, his party was actually lauded as a huge success by the sheriff as well.
Really?
The traffic control measures that he had in place, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if he got his permit last minute, but again, Sheriff Babb out there doing the Lord's work, saying, I don't see anything wrong with any of this.
So
yeah, he did end up getting his permit.
Yeah, after all the hoopla, after all the people freaking out about it, he did a great event and it went along smoothly and didn't cause any traffic. And that's just
Rick Ross has some ridiculous cars for a guy who hasn't put out music in a while.
He's got his own car wax.
Well, I don't know if that's the same thing or if that. Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to put out music. If you put out like 3 hit albums that continually get played and continually get sampled in movies and TV shows, you're set for life. You don't have to worry about money till the day you die.
That is true.
Anyway, this story I found extremely interesting. I don't know who shared this in our chat, but I really like where this one's going or where it could possibly go. Steve, what are your first thoughts on this one, where the family is suing the DoD rather than Big Pharma?
This would be an interesting one to go. We'll see how it plays out. I like the way that they're approaching this. Yeah. Hopefully they have RFK for an attorney, because I don't know what attorney is going to stand up for this one. Once you actually file this in court, I mean, now the DoD hates your guts as an attorney. That's pretty rough.
Oof, yeah.
Well, it is filed by Children's Health Defense, so I mean that's RFK's group.
There we go. Okay, so I can totally believe this. This might be who they need to go after, because, I mean, really, honestly, it's probably the Department of Justice would be the one to sue for that, because they're the ones actually allowing the legal immunity to persist. Because it was, RFK Jr., I believe it was July 2019, he had a case before the Supreme Court where he sued the HHS because as part of their vaccine immunity that Reagan granted them in '84, that every 2 years, I think it was, I forget what the period is, but they're supposed to have a comprehensive safety and efficacy review and report that to Congress. And so he was doing FOIA requests to HHS for these studies. Like, hey, where is this stuff? Because it's not making it into the inserts. It's not in any news. It's not in any peer-reviewed journals. No one's talking about it. And so they went long enough without complying to these FOIA requests. He finally took them all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Secretary of HHS got on the stand in the Supreme Court and said, I have not submitted those reports because they don't exist. And then he looks at the judge and says, well, hey, sounds like they shouldn't be legally immune.
It's very interesting. And yeah,
So
for people who are just listening to this podcast, which we're now considering it a podcast because I'm beginning to put it out there as audio. This story is about a family of a 24-year-old who died from the COVID vaccine, and they're suing the DoD because Operation Warp Speed was under the care of the DoD during Trump's roll out the vaccine crap. And so rather than going after the big pharma companies, these people are going after the Department of Defense, which is a much more interesting route considering exactly what Steven said, which is that the Department of Justice gave big pharma immunity from ever being sued for any vaccine injuries or deaths. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on. This is going to be tabbed away for me for a while. Yeah. Zane, you're being awfully quiet.
I mean, I only know so much about car shows, and it's not very much. But I'd be interested to see how they go about trying to prove that the myocarditis actually was vaccine induced. Because obviously you've got the entire medical establishment saying, oh, of course there's no causal connection. That's all fake news. And so I feel like it could be very easy for them to play it off as, oh, it's just completely random that this guy got myocarditis right after he took the vaccine. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about trying to actually prove that.
Yeah,
and there was a whole slew of doctors. I think they were basically led by Dr. Peter McCullough and some others. And I think there's like 20-something thousand signed a resolution.
Yeah.
Saying that, this stuff leads to myocarditis. Who was it? Zelenko. Zelenko was the other big one. He passed away. Of course, he had cancer. It wasn't related to a vaccine. But he was another one speaking out about it. It's just they all got blackballed.
Courts have ruled deaths having been caused by the vaccine. Like that has been actual rulings made by courts.
100%. And there are plenty of, I mean, a lot of them are anecdotal, but there are plenty of stories of people getting the vaccine and immediately getting injured or dying within a few days. And I don't know. I do think a lot of these stories are painted as conspiracy theories and crazy people in the corporate press. And so you're probably not going to win like the public opinion of it, but in a court of law, presenting evidence, I'm not sure how much actual evidence that saying this is just hearsay is going to provide, as far as defending the vaccine. So,
well, you got Pfizer, just in the course of a couple of years made $100 billion. So, how much of that are they willing to throw hush money at people?
But Steve, how did they make $100 billion if the vaccine was free? I don't understand. Can you explain that? Like, we got the vaccines for free. I don't understand how they made any money. How did that happen?
Right.
They just did it for the good of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what all those giant pharmaceutical companies do.
Well, it's late stage capitalism. That's what I blame. Obviously, it's the greedy corporations.
Oh yeah, no, that was the secondary option for sure. Yeah, I definitely do not like capitalism at all. It only brings out the worst in people. It makes people lazy, makes people steal. Like it's all stupid. Go ahead, Zane.
I think the one single statistic that's the easiest to understand that can maybe make people at least consider the possibility that the vaccine is not perfectly safe, and it comes from Dr. McCullough, as you said, was that it's something like over the 18 months after the vaccine was introduced, there was something like 1,000 heart attacks among high school and college athletes, whereas every similar period before the vaccine, it was like 2 or 3.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
I'm just putting that out there as a statistic that you may find interesting.
Oh yeah. Well, and then there's been some life insurance salesmen, things like that that are coming out saying that they're having to raise their rates, or they're having to account for put a clause in there basically of like, we're not liable for any experimental medications.
Oh,
There's,
and they're
well,
labeling this as an experimental medication.
Oh, absolutely it is. That's why it has emergency use authorization.
It doesn't
That
anymore,
was-
though. That went away.
Well, yeah.
That's interesting.
Did it though?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, they took away. I'm pretty sure they took away the emergency use. I might be wrong on that.
Well, and it was the way they took it away too, because it was the mRNA one. It was the one that Moderna did, I believe, that they actually declared it. It passed human trials, and it was kind of quietly shoved under the rug that we were the human trials.
Well, like when Pfizer the Pfizer one was first released, right? When they quote unquote approved it, what they did was they approved the Comirnaty, which they said was a similar form, a similar or equal formulation, but because the FDA, the way that the laws work, the name matters, and the fact that you had the experimental one still being given out and the Comirnaty wasn't on the market, there was an approved one that nobody could get, and you could only get the emergency use authorized one. So that was a whole piece of propaganda that was put out there right from the start there. So you had, so they said that they said the two were equivalent, but under different branding, so they could have their cake and eat it too by saying, hey, this is approved, you get the approved thing, but then technically the unapproved experimental one was still the one that was being given out all over the place with the emergency use authorization coverages already included on it, right? So that was an interesting little move that happened there.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't know if they ever rescinded the emergency use, or if they were just keeping that gravy train rolling while it lasted.
I wonder which one got to Jamie Foxx.
Oh,
because Mike Tyson's been saying some things.
Mike Tyson has been saying, and his Jamie Foxx's daughter has been saying opposite things.
Yeah.
Well, what do you expect, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
The second I heard about the Jamie Foxx one, I went,
right.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. Somebody was talking about it the other day. I think it may have been Tim Pool. I don't know, but yeah, that's an interesting one. Supposed reports of him playing pickleball, and supposed also reports of him being paralyzed. So,
yeah,
how are you going to believe anything? And like the fact that he hasn't come out and isn't like back on set, kind of makes it seem like he is worse off than people make him out to be.
Well, and the one sentence tweets, thanks for the prayers, y'all. Keep them coming.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of out of character.
Yeah, that's totally his voice. Totally his voice.
Yeah.
that's how he's always tweeted.
Yeah,
so
everything's
yeah,
not a psyop these days. Everything's normal. Nothing's a psyop.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the new normal. So if something bothers you, you just ignore it because it's not real.
All right. Zach, what do we got next, man? What's the next one?
This is why it's tense. This is all the United States military bases around the world. That's just Africa. Look at that. There's the Middle East.
International law says need to be there.
Keep showing this. Look at it. So there's China. There's look at all the military bases we have. Where's China? Can you imagine if China had military bases off the coast of it? We'd be going, or had military bases in Central America, and could you imagine that? Again, this is the United States.
Yeah, and also
this is how all empires end, and we're ending exactly the same. We are not funding our own country as we send money to Ukraine. Go ahead.
We sent all our.
This is why it's tense.
All right, you can.
This
you can
is all.
Okay.
First off,
I
it's
just
their
say that
fault
one
for
of the
putting
most-
their countries. It's their fault for putting their countries close to the military bases.
Right. I mean, I'm sure our military bases were there first, so they really should have settled somewhere else.
Yeah, you should have kept that country sailing along like Antarctica or something.
Oh, for sure. Zane,
One of the best pieces of evidence I have that the U.S. is an empire is that the number one owner operator of golf courses in the world is the U.S. military.
What?
Because they have so many golf courses on their bases that they just
like every Air Force base has a golf course. That's like a well-known fact.
Well, that makes sense of why the Saudis want to buy our golf now.
Oh yeah, I didn't even.
They bought all our missiles under Trump, so now they want all the golf courses.
I mean, it's
except that the golf went back to the PGA and that weird little deal. If we're going to dive into the PGA,
we're not going to dive into PGA. No, I'm not going to go.
No, this is one of my areas of expertise.
Golf is your area.
I'm kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I golf a lot.
Really? All right, Zane. You and I are going to go golf next time I'm in town.
You said that to me years ago, and you said we still haven't golfed.
So China does they do have military presence. They're real heavy in Australia, Africa,
Did you see
parts of South America. Their consulates. I mean, that was a big news story. You know, the consulates in other countries are spying on their citizens there.
Yeah, and just
our consulates in other countries are spying on those citizens there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But for anybody who's just listening, the Jimmy Dore show, he showed a globe basically with pins at every point where we have a military base, and it was just pins everywhere. Anywhere that wasn't America or Mexico had a pin in it, and which if you included the United States, it would just be so many pins. But what I found most interesting was I think I read this today, is that China and Cuba have come to some type of agreement. Is
Cuba
this true?
Missile Crisis 2.0.
So I believe Cuba gets $7 billion in exchange for China being able to put a military base right outside of Havana.
Good for them.
I thought it would be funnier if it was right next to Guantanamo Bay.
Yes, or give them Guantanamo Bay.
Well, yeah.
We had Guantanamo Bay first, and then Cuba put their country around it.
I mean, okay, yeah. If you believe in just the superiority of America, then we settled everywhere first. So yeah, I agree with you there. Zane.
There you go.
Yeah, so beyond even just, China's military stuff, they've been doing a lot with their, Operation Belt and Road, I think they call it. Essentially going to a bunch of countries in Africa and offering to build a bunch of infrastructure there for really cheap. And a bunch of people in the typically US conservatives are like, this is why we need to go around building infrastructure in all these countries too, or else China will build their global empire before we do. And what they don't realize is that China is bankrupting themselves doing this. You could make the claim just like the US empire is on its way down, the Chinese empire, I mean, they're bankrupting themselves even faster than we are.
Oh yeah, they're building entire ghost cities. These high-rise metropolis cities no one lives in. During the Obama years, rebar was cheaper than cabbage over there.
The difference is, I think the difference is that sending the military places, you can't make money off the military. The military is a suck on your resources, and the only thing it's there for is to maintain the petrodollar. Whereas all of these economic treaties or agreements that the Chinese are making could conceivably make them money. They're not right now. And yes, they are. It is a giant drain on their resources at the moment, but conceivably it could garner them much better relationships with people around the world so that when they are in trouble, they can be helped out of it by all these countries that they have helped.
Well, I mean, not if the majority of what you're building are, bridges to nowhere and electrical grids to people that can't really afford electricity.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, maybe. So I mean, your options are you do what China's doing, or you do it the way the U.S. does it through the IMF and World Bank. If you've ever read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and
I've never read that.
And understand how that. You've never read it. So basically the way that it works, and I'm going to drop an article here from late last year in the chat that we can pull up, and I'd recommend everyone read this. or go listen to a bunch of the podcasts that Alex Gladstein did on this, going through the IMF and World Bank. But basically, the way it works is that you send these consulting agencies out throughout the world to sell countries on these grand infrastructure projects, and you're going to fund it through the IMF, World Bank. They've got some slightly different roles, but they kind of work together. Like they basically share a building, or they have a bridge between their buildings or something, right? And then the idea is to sell them on something that they're never going to be able to pay off. And then the deal is once you can't pay it off, well, then the Western companies are going to come in and they're going to take your resources. And a lot of these times, a lot of the stuff they try to do, I know one of Gladstein's biggest examples here was like in Bangladesh, where you had a bunch of poor farmers who were subsistence farmers. So I mean, they were making enough to live, but they came, some bad infrastructure deals there. Hey, they need money, they need to export. So the government then incentivizes these guys to flood their fields with salt water and grow shrimp for export to the markets, where they at that point are exporting everything. And there's the organized crime and whatever else actually kind of like funneling this through there in those countries. So those guys see very little. Now they have to import all of their food versus grow it themselves, and they're exporting all this, and they've just wrecked their land by salting it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So right, so like if you look at the consequences of these things, right, it's absolutely insane. And I recommend people dive into this a little more.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
they've been doing that for a long time. Like I think in the 60s, like the U.S. backed a project to build this huge electrical system in the Congo, and gave them a big loan that would be very hard for them to pay off. And then once they were finally done building it, the parts that they had built before were already so rusted up that they could not be used. So nobody got hardly any power from this. But they trapped the Congo with all this debt and now they're oh, sorry, I don't know what's going on here.
Zane, what the hell?
I think my Spotify just turned itself on.
Oh,
nice.
We're getting flagged for copyright issues now.
Yeah.
But further going down,
luckily it was Linkin Park and not something more embarrassing that I could have also.
But it's actually interesting with, if you listen and see some of these projects going on in the Bitcoin space to develop some of these nations. There's companies now building these microgrids, building small dams, hydro dams, things like that, that they're able to justify the expenditures based off of the fact that when the electricity is not being used, they can run miners.
Right.
And then when they need electricity, they just switch over to the electricity for the villages, and you're able to bring electricity to these places that have never done it and make a profit doing it.
It's genius, man. Bitcoin just opens up so many doors. We're gonna get to that later as well.
Well, and just blockchain tech in general. There's a lot of African nations that are mainly agrarian, like Uganda, for instance. They're running their entire agriculture business, I think, from Solana.
I think so. Yeah, Solana.
It's one of the lesser cryptos, but it's a stable blockchain that they don't have to have a centralized bank or an agriculture department to track all this stuff.
Is it Solana or Cardano?
Cardano, probably. Thank you. Yeah,
Cardano.
Yeah, I think it's Cardano. But yeah, I mean, the use of this tech is phenomenal, and hopefully, I don't know. There are countries in Africa that have been just completely obliterated over the centuries by people going in and mining the crap out of them, and wars starting over the mining of these materials. And hopefully blockchain can help fix that, because it can do a lot of good.
If you can incentivize, and if you're incentivizing these companies to come in and provide the service, if the market can do that, just by saying, hey, we're gonna use our excess electricity to mine, and when you guys need the electricity, we're able to provide it for you at a reasonable rate. But we can, all the excess that we have, we can make it make financial sense, where now, you villages that have never had electricity, now you've got electricity. Now we can get you some internet, maybe. Now, you're moving along, and we don't have to come in and tell you what you're going to grow or how you're going to live. It's just going to be, hey, keep doing whatever you want to do. But now here's some additional connectivity that you have with the rest of the world. And maybe, I mean, Africa's on the up and coming. I mean, Lagos is on track to become the biggest city in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, look that up. It's
well, that's a Saudi Arabia that get their mirror wall city.
I don't know how long in the
boondoggle.
future, but like the population of Lagos is on track. That it's the growth of it's on track where it's projected to become the biggest city in the world at some point.
Interesting. Cool. I mean, I only know Lagos from the movie Sahara with Matthew McConaughey and Steve Zahn.
I only know Legos from that set that I had when I was a kid.
Yes,
I knew that was coming, but
Zane with the zinger, y'all. I think Zach, I think we're ready for our next segment, which is Libations Trivia. Let's rock this niche. Okay, tonight, before we get into our main topic, trivia will be all about that main topic. We're going to do Libations Trivia about Snowden, the NSA, and whistleblowers in general. For those who haven't watched before, the rules are 3 rounds. First round is 10 questions, 1 point each. Second round is 5 questions, 2 points each. Round 3 is 3 questions, 3 points each. You got to cover your camera to answer the question. First person to cover the camera, I call on. You can't answer again until everybody has answered the question. If you blurt out the answer when it's not your turn, you will lose a point. I don't care if you got the right answer. In fact, if you get the right answer and ruin the question for everybody, you lose 3 points. That's the new rule. Let's see. Let me type in everybody's name here. All right. Okay. And the winner gets to pick the topic for next week, or one of the topics for next week. All right. We have a whole new setup, y'all. I hope this is here's the all-time scoreboard. Zane is in the lead with 3. Nick has 2. Steve has 1. The audience has 1.
Is that points or wins?
Wins.
Oh, okay.
I don't care about points. The point system changes from week to week. I don't give a crap about points. Alden has 0, and he's not here, so he gets another big goose egg. And then the guest has not yet won, although we've only ever played with 2 guests, I think. Mike Termott and Shane Hazel. And Shane sucked butt at this game. So
when was Shane on this?
He was a good sport.
You were in a meeting, Nick.
Oh, one of those weeks. You guys didn't even tell me.
Nope. Never going to tell you. Okay. Round 1. Edward Snowden. Get your fingers ready to touch that screen. Here we go. What was the name of the surveillance program that Edward Snowden exposed? Zane?
Prism.
Prism is the correct answer. Let me give Zane 1 point. All right. Next question. In which city did Edward Snowden first meet with journalists to disclose the leaked documents? Nick?
Hong Kong.
Nick is correct.
Oh,
Hong Kong. Bravo. All right. And just so y'all know, these are from ChatGPT, but I actually did my research to make sure these were all correct this week.
I don't know how much you guys have messed around with ChatGPT, but when it makes something up and then you tell it, ask it if that's true or tell it that's not right, it will actually apologize to you for making something up.
That is hilarious. What is the title of Edward Snowden's memoir published in 2019? Oh, interesting. Zane?
This is just a guess, but dissident?
Wrong. Nick?
Fed.
Wrong. Steven, you get 10 seconds.
It's final something. Crap. I don't know. Blanking on this one.
Mr. Zach Varnell in the audience got it correct. Permanent record.
Permanent record. There we go.
So audience gets a point. He does not have access to the slides, by the way. It's only me that has access to the slides.
I
Probably
thought that was
should
the whole
mention
thing was that
multiplayer.
he was going to be running this so that you didn't have to.
I don't mind running this part. I don't want to run everything else in the background. So yeah, he put on the music. He did all the other stuff. I enjoy doing this. What was Edward Snowden's job title at the NSA before he became a whistleblower? Steven.
Analyst.
Be a little more specific.
Technical analyst.
Sorry, you broke up. What was it?
Technical analyst.
No, I'm looking for something more specific. There are actually two. Zane.
Like cybersecurity analyst.
Nope. Nick.
Well, technically, he was working for Booz Allen Hamilton, wasn't he? Not the NSA. He was a contractor for the NSA through Booz Allen Hamilton.
Okay.
So, some sort of outside consultant, analyst, some external analyst, something like that. I don't know.
All right. Well, I think everybody's going to get half a point because everybody said analyst in some way. Systems administrator and infrastructure analyst.
You
Ah,
seriously expected any of us to get that exact title?
No, just one of them. I just wanted one of them, Zane. Just infrastructure analyst would have been great, but you failed. Don't like freak out because you failed miserably, Zane. It's okay.
Yeah, but I think your question was incorrect also because.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Next question. What is the name of the documentary released in 2014 that chronicles Edward Snowden's journey and the implications of his disclosures? Nick.
Fed.
No.
Oh, jeez. I should know this.
Y'all should know this. Have y'all not seen this documentary? It's awesome.
I have not.
Oh, my gosh.
yeah.
Nick, you can't answer until Zane and Steven.
I'm not sure I've seen it.
Wow. Go watch the freaking documentary. Y'all are embarrassing. Nick, I see your hand. You'll get it after Zane and Steven fail to get it. Zane and Steven, y'all have 10 seconds, then it goes back to Nick.
Whistleblower.
Mm-mm. Zane.
Divide and dominate. How the powerful steal more power.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I'd have gotten the call to produce this documentary. Nick, what's up?
Citizen 4?
Citizen 4.
Wow. Good job.
Nick takes the lead. 2-1 to 0-1.
I felt like I knew it, and I just threw out the bullshit answer because I couldn't think of it in time. But yeah, then it came to me right after I answered.
Fair enough. All right. Next question. What criminal charges did the United States government file against Edward Snowden following the leak? Mind you, okay, Zane gets to go first. Mind you, I need both charges, not just one.
Oh, jeez. Like, I guess I'll go like espionage and treason.
Okay, wrong. Steven.
I'll go with treason and criminal conspiracy.
Wrong. Nick.
It was espionage and improper possession of stolen records or something like that.
Espionage and theft of government property. We're going to give that one to Nick.
All
You're
right.
so close. You're so close, Zane. You got the easy one. Everyone got the easy one, though.
Yeah, treason doesn't apply in
Yeah, it's true. Didn't apply in the
What
Espionage
is?
Act. All right. What year was the Espionage Act created? Zane.
1917.
Nailed it.
Wow. Good job,
Thank
man.
you, Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, I figured the year the U.S. entered World War I was a pretty safe bet.
Yeah,
There you go.
pretty good.
Yeah, in worst case, anytime under Woodrow Wilson's a great.
All right.
Yeah, that's true. Anytime anything bad was created, just go back to Woodrow Wilson. It's probably then. All right, next question. What is the approximate number of classified documents Edward Snowden, Zane?
Over 9,000.
Good
Wrong.
job, Vegeta.
Nick.
69.
Oh my
Nice.
gosh. Steven.
14,000.
Y'all are so far off, it's not even funny. Y'all have 10 seconds to re-answer. Zane.
2 billion.
Nick.
420.
Oh my gosh. Nick's in a goofy mood tonight, y'all. Steven.
150,000.
All right, you're the closest, but you're all wrong. Over 1.5 million, which is quite a few. All right, next question. What area of the world was Snowden initially attempting to reach after fleeing? Zane.
Russia.
Wrong. Nick.
Ecuador.
That is correct. That is technically correct. I would have accepted Latin America, South America, Central America, or any country therein. Nick is crushing it, y'all. Let's see. Was that? I think there's one more question this round. Give me 1 second. Yeah, one more question this round. Here we go. In 2014, what major award did Edward Snowden receive for his whistleblowing activities? Nick.
Was it a Pulitzer?
Sorry, Nick, I didn't hear you.
Was it a Pulitzer?
It was not a Pulitzer. I'll give you a hint. It's also known as the Alternative Nobel Prize. I'd never heard of this award, just so you know.
Oh, crap. Okay.
Yeah. All right, 5 seconds. All right, Nick, do you have another answer?
I do not.
All right. The Right Livelihood Award.
Never heard of it.
Me neither. All right, on to round 2, the National Security Agency. Each of these questions is worth 2 points. Let's do it. What was the code name given to the NSA's program that involved... Zane.
Is it just Prism again?
It is not Prism again. Hang on, let me finish reading the question.
Okay.
What was the name of the code name given to the NSA's program that involved the collection of internet communications from major technology companies? Steven.
Stellar Wind.
Wrong. That was definitely one of... it was slightly different than this one. Nick, do you have a guess?
I'm thinking I should know this. I feel like I know this, but
it's not fair that
as soon
Nick
as you tell
is
me what
from
it is,
the
I'm gonna
NSA.
be like,
I mean, if you look at Nick's tag, I mean, he's literally from the NSA. He should not be answering these questions.
I cannot confirm or deny these things existed.
Yeah. Okay. Y'all have 5 seconds.
Echelon?
No, Robert got it wrong. He's allowed one wrong answer per trivia. Upstream.
Now, Upstream was once it left North America. I thought that was when it went international.
Not from what I researched, but I could be wrong. I've been known to make mistakes. I tried to confirm all these.
Okay, because that was in the PowerPoint slideshow for the Prism program. Was Prism and Upstream use both, and Upstream was the co-opting of European data agencies.
Okay. If you can show me some proof later on in the episode, I'll give it to you.
All right.
All right. Next question. Which court authorized the NSA's bulk collection? Nick.
FISA.
Let me make sure before I put the thing.
The
up
FISA
there.
courts, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act courts.
Kind of. Yeah, I'll give it to you. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court.
Now that we're an audio show, do you think we should do Jeopardy rules where we can't put our hand up until you're done reading the question? Just to be nice to the listeners.
I'm so from now on, I'm gonna just note in my brain who responded first, and I'm just gonna keep reading the question. How about that?
That'll work.
Sounds good.
All right, beautiful. Question. What is the name of the landmark legislation passed in 2015 that ended the NSA's bulk collection of phone records? And I was the one who put ended in quotations because let's be real, it didn't end jack. I'll give you a hint. It's one of those idiot names for an act that is that it just doesn't do what it actually says it does.
The
Zane.
Freedom and Liberty Act.
I'm going to give it to you. The USA Freedom Act.
Oh my god!
Didn't it like explain how they could legally take all that stuff basically instead of just
Yes.
doing whatever they were doing?
Yes. Now they
You
now
can
they
do
just-
everything you were doing. You just have to do it this way.
Yep, that's basically what it is. All right, next question. Which court ruled in 2013 that the NSA's bulk collection of phone records was likely unconstitutional? Zane?
The Supreme Court.
No. Nick?
The Fifth Circuit.
No. Steven?
The Ninth Circuit.
Wrong. Y'all have 5 seconds. To be fair, Zane.
12th Circuit.
To be fair, this okay. If okay, we're just gonna have to find out if I got this one right.
Is it one of the appeals?
The United States District Court for the District of Columbia.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't think it was one of the circuit courts. So there you go. Okay.
It definitely wasn't Eastern Virginia where they try, where all the whistleblowers and where Assange will be tried. And
Well, hopefully. What is the term used to describe the NSA's practice of collecting data on non-U.S. citizens located outside the United States? Zane?
It's like hop, skip, and a jump.
Wrong. Nick?
standard operating procedure.
I'll give you a hint. Actually, I can't. Until Steven says his guess, I can't give you a hint.
Canvassing.
Wrong. I'll give you a hint. You've already said it. Zane?
Prism.
No.
Standard.
No. 5 seconds. Zane?
Stellar wind.
Oh my gosh.
Spying.
Spying. The answer is Foreign Intelligence Service Act. You do. All right. Round number 3, whistleblowers. 3
What's
points
the score
each.
right now?
All right, let me bring up the score.
Point of information.
Nick, let's not do that. Nick
Point
has
of insultation.
Nick has 6. Zane has 4. The audience has 1, and Steve has a big fat goose egg with an asterisk of 2. Because if he proves that was correct, his last complaint, then he'll get 2 points. But technically speaking, if he gets all 3 of these correct, which I have a feeling he could, he takes the lead and wins it. Here we go. Hang on, let me pull it up. There we go. Which whistleblower exposed the NSA's warrantless wiretapping program in 2005? Steven?
William Binney.
Nope.
In 2005.
Technically, you only need to get 2 of these correct, Steven, in order to win. But that's without anybody getting any of the others right.
Oh, yeah. 2005.
Nick and Zane, you have 10 seconds.
I got nothing.
Nick, you got anything? If Nick doesn't have anything, I have a hint.
I'll take a hint.
He was a former AT&T technician.
That's not a very good hint.
Well, sorry.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Oh, my gosh.
5 seconds.
This one. 2005 doesn't ring a bell.
The answer is Mark Klein.
Okay, the name rings a bell, but I'm not super familiar with this.
I know. This is the 3rd round. These are harder, although some of them might not be. All right. Question number 2. What is the name of the whistleblower who revealed the controversial NSA program called Thin Thread that involved the collection of metadata on international communications? Steven?
That's William Binney.
That is William Binney.
Boom.
Bill Binney. All right.
The OG. By the way, they poisoned his ass. He's in a wheelchair now.
Jeez.
Yeah, he goes on Scott Horton every once in a while. He debunked Russiagate like right off the bat.
Of course he did. All right, Steven, if you get this next one right, you tie Nick, and y'all do a rock, paper, scissors on screen.
Yes.
Here we go. Which whistleblower leaked documents in 1971 that came to be known as the Pentagon Papers, revealing classified information about the Vietnam War? Did anybody put their hand up already? Nick,
I think
I don't.
Nick got in. Nick got in before me. But
Oh, yeah. I know who it is. It's Daniel Ellsberg.
Daniel Ellsberg.
Ooh.
I was Daniel Ellsberg. That's who it was.
All right. Y'all, thanks for playing. Appreciate it. Thanks to the audience for suffering through that. I mean, we got more people watching during the trivia time than we did the rest of the show so far. So I guess people seem to
like
enjoy
trivia.
the trivia. Yeah. All right.
I was
so Nick,
expecting John Kiriakou to be an answer.
the final scores were Nick with 9, Zane with 4, Steve with 3, and the audience with 1. So, Nick, I think you and Zane are tied for the leaderboard for all-time wins. So how about
There
that?
we go. I was so confident in this one too. I even did some research, man. I was like,
I thought you would have gotten all the whistleblowers because you seem to know that kind of information.
yeah. Well, I was reading about Mark Klein before the show. I just totally blanked in the trivia scene.
I couldn't even. I feel like I've heard it, but I just am not super familiar with that one.
And I was looking across the room at Calvin Klein on a cologne bottle. Dadgummit.
And I know William Binney. I'm not super familiar with what he actually blew the whistle on. So,
gotcha. Well, y'all, that brings us to our primary story for the night. Let's go to that Spike Cohen tweet. 10 years ago today, the first of the Snowden leaks were reported by Glenn Greenwald. By the time the reports were complete, we would know that the U.S. government was illegally spying on tens of millions of Americans. Ever since, Edward has been a fugitive from the U.S. government for the crime of being a whistleblower. Thank you for your service, Edward. This actually that.
he froze. All right. So,
Yeah. All right.
All right. So, yeah, Edward Snowden.
There we go. I'm back. Shut your mouth, Nick. I'm back. All right. That tweet is what made me want to do a whole thing on Snowden, because I think there's a lot to talk about over the past 10 years of what's happened with the NSA and just information in general coming out to the public and how whistleblowers have been treated. Because, I mean, it was a very unique way that he got the story out there. And I don't know, Zach, can you pull up the Glenn Greenwald tweet where he talks about his interview with Snowden and the director of Citizen4 that he did on.
Are we freezing again?
I think so.
There we go.
Yeah.
We're going to freeze on them.
So on June 6, 2013, we began our Snowden reporting with My Guardian report that NSA, contrary to Clapper's denials, was spying on Americans en masse. Tuesday is the 10-year anniversary, and we'll have Snowden Laura Poitras on at System Update to talk about what this has meant. So because I mean, this is kind of what put Glenn Greenwald really on the map there.
Absolutely. Well, and who was the Rolling Stone reporter that, because this was all about the same time, wasn't it? Nope, I'm mixing two things up.
Yeah, no, like this was broken, the Greenwald. I mean, he was a decent name, but like this is what really blew him up. This reporting began when Laura and I went to Hong Kong to meet a mysterious source who had the most consequential leak in the history of the U.S. security state. We'll discuss how it happened, what it revealed, and what major privacy challenges remain. So on The Guardian there, Laura does a very few interviews, so sometimes her vital role is overlooked. I'm thrilled the three of us are getting together for this 10-year anniversary. With U.S. security state abuse now worse than ever. Her Oscar-winning documentary on the work we did. So yeah, Citizen4, which I've definitely seen. I was just, not
I've seen documentaries with him mentioned. I haven't seen that actual documentary, and so that's why I was in the chat with you guys earlier today talking about William Binney. because that Thin Thread program was the precursor to Operation Stellar Wind, when that little gremlin Michael Hayden got carte blanche to do whatever. Because that was, so Bill Binney, and because he was the technical director of the NSA for a while. And so he built this program, and it had all the necessary filters to follow legality. And it would filter out, is this a justifiable probe? And then not only that, but what are we looking for? Because in the wake of 9/11, in the wake of the Stellar Wind program and the mass surveillance that, by the way, Israel helped us build, with the G7. So Australia is involved in that as well, and the UK. But in the wake of all that, they just painted with a broad brush. And that was one of the things that William Binney was coming out about, was he was like, hey, man, we built safeguards into this thing to not only, make sure we're not breaking the law, and following the Constitution, and only surveilling people that desire it, that really are being flagged, that are actually doing, nasty things that really warrant us stepping in and monitoring them. Not only is that going on, but what you're doing now is flooding your average analyst with so much information. There's no way for them to sift through it and figure out what's viable. How do you form a conclusion? It's just this vomit of data. And they have way more than they need. Like, you don't need to know what the guy's social media posts are to figure out his financial transactions. It's stuff like that. It's not.
Oh,
it's
but
not
without his
focused
social
anymore.
media, how do you know if he commits wrongthink or not?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what gave birth to this whole notion of parallel construction. I don't know if you've heard that term, but they can falsify social media posts and then later on use that as admissible evidence in your case.
All right, y'all.
As you've seen with some mass shootings that were, questionable in the last 10, 15 years.
Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. So they can create this whole psychological profile of things that you never actually posted on your social media. They can retroactively go in there and make these things look like they genuinely came from you. But it's not your words, it's not your thoughts. It's just, in the wake of an event where you're the scapegoat, that's what they can do.
Oh yeah.
So, and William Binney was the guy, blowing the whistle on that. And then Edward Snowden came out, and then all of a sudden, takes William Binney out of the spotlight, even though it wasn't really that big of a spotlight at the time. Because, so the thing that Ed Snowden did that was so.
I don't remember Benny at all, like contemporary.
Right.
Now, I was young, but he didn't come to my attention until like listening to Scott Horton for a while.
Well, because he was just coming out with the what, so Ed Snowden actually came out with the how, because by the time, so Benny leaves, and then years later, all the stuff that Benny was resisting and pushing back against and saying, this is not only illegal, it's immoral, we shouldn't do this. He's, is pushing against that. He leaves, and then they package basically all the reasons of his resignation. They made that a training manual for the people that came after him. And so that's how stuff like that got to Snowden in such a digestible format of like a PowerPoint slide. I mean, just think like that, that PRISM program thing. Ed Snowden didn't put that together. Like they sat in a break room and watched that.
Yep. 100%. It's just bizarre. If anybody hasn't watched this 10-year anniversary special from Glenn Greenwald with Snowden, I would highly recommend it. I watched it today. It's great to see them reflecting on it, because it's crazy what a decade can do to your mindset and what you wish you'd have done and what you could have done better and could have done more of. And what I found most interesting is Snowden mentioned that that all the a ton of the reasons for the government freaking out was that they would put out into the media saying it's dangerous to have this information out there. It's dangerous to release this stuff. Bad things will happen to people. People will get killed because of this information. But according to Snowden and Greenwald, not a single one of those came true. No one in the field died. Nothing bad happened to.
Well, that's always the claim, right? They made that under Manning also.
Yes, it's true.
Oh,
but
so...
to be fair, the point is that stuff can happen. It can lead to deaths, but if you handle it in the correct way, then it won't. And so the point that they were making in this video was that he took it to professional journalists who are good at their jobs, and he took it to Greenwald because he was critical of the New York Times and the Washington Post and how they'd handled things in the past. And he took it to people who he knew would handle it with care and who would do it in the right way. And he is very much against just taking a lot of information, dumping it out on the internet because you think it's interesting and you want people to see it. He was very.
I'm very
clear.
pro just dump information on the internet and let people see it, like the Discord hacker guy, the Discord leaker.
Yeah, no,
I'm
I
like,
understand.
Yeah, dump that shit out there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, I'm like, dump it. I don't care.
I do. I think there are enough people out there who believe that what they're doing, like they're low-level operators who are in places that are very dangerous, who are in places where they definitely shouldn't be, but they were sent there. And to be fair, a lot of those people have been brainwashed over, their entire lifetime by the U.S. government and by propaganda from the media. And so, like, I don't think it's necessarily fair to just say dump all the information out there and don't care at all about what might happen to people who might actually be somewhat innocent in the whole thing.
If the choice I can get like the preference being to go professionally through someone like Glenn Greenwald, but also like if the choices come down to dump it or keep it secret, dump it.
That's not the choice, though. You can reach out to anyone on Earth these days. He could have reached out to Glenn Greenwald and dumped it and gave it to him in a much better way than he did. And he also probably wouldn't be where he is right now, which is freaking A. My internet, y'all. I'm sorry. Starlink, once it powers down, it takes about 15 minutes to stabilize. So apologies if I keep bopping in and out for a bit.
So so where he is today, that's. Look at Geraldo Rivera. Why isn't he in Gitmo? If we're talking about putting American troops or analysts in harm's way, my God, do y'all remember seeing him on TV drawing a map in the freaking sand on national television of like, hey, here's Fallujah, here's this city, and here we are right here, and we're going this direction, and we're going to be here in 3 days.
Yeah, see,
bro,
that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that should be cracked down on hard. Like, that is absurd. You don't do stuff like that. That's crazy. So, yeah, I completely disagree. Don't just dump a whole lot of information out online. I just don't agree with that method. I understand the sentiment behind it, and I understand why you would want to, but that you have other options. You didn't always have other options. Like, it wasn't always easy to reach out to people, but there are tons of people that you could reach out to that could like siphon through the information, look through it, figure out what needs to be put out, and put it out in a legit way that doesn't harm people. So yeah. Oh my gosh.
Zach, put Buddy's comment up on the screen.
Yes.
Buddy, don't you have your own stream to get to tonight? I thought y'all streamed on Thursday nights.
No, they don't have a podcast yet. They sometimes hop on Black Flag.
Oh, gotcha.
There we go.
I'm waiting for
the streams.
I'm waiting for them to come out with me and my buddy.
Me and my buddy.
That's going to be the Will and Buddy's podcast.
They really got to go to Connor Price for that theme song. Have y'all heard that Me and My Buddy song by Connor Price? It's freaking awesome. Buddy, go look that up, man. It's a great song. He's a great rapper. He's
or My Buddy and Me, whatever they're going to call it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, buddy. I would love to be in your pocket sometime. Just let me know when. All right. What's another article that I sent you, Zach?
So while we're still on Snowden,
well, we're going to be on Snowden for the rest of the episode, Zane.
Oh, okay. I will reserve my point for a more appropriate time in that case.
Yeah. No, we're talking about Snowden for basically till the very end of the episode. I have like 2 things to go over at the very end.
Until we talk about golf again, right?
When do we ask the important question?
What's the important question, Nick?
Was Snowden an op?
Okay, that is an interesting question. Yeah, somebody mentioned this. It had never once crossed my mind.
Monica, see, this is where we should have grabbed Brad Binkley, because like Monica Perez is breaking this down on her show a while back, like in depth on why she thinks that Snowden's not legitimate.
Interesting.
I-
Okay. Can you give me some points on that?
I wish I could remember all the details, but
That was where I got my education on controlled opposition and limited hangout. That was why it was so serendipitous for me to talk to Binkley that one time we had him on. I was like, oh my God, it was like a rock star to me. So that was one of the things they were talking. They had to distinctify the difference of limited hangout and controlled opposition. So, if Snowden's a psyop, what kind is he? Is he like a double agent or something like that? Because, at that point, he's more of controlled opposition because he's going in with the mission of blending in to spread disinformation. Or is he a limited hangout? Was he exposed to something with a select few other people just to see who would break the news? And they weren't given, they were just given the tip of the iceberg, and they're like, okay, we're going to tell 4 people this sensitive information and see who runs off with it. But we're not telling them the whole story.
Can you
and
imagine?
So the hallmark of they disclosed this is going to be what fragment of the story got leaked.
Dude, can you imagine if that's just, I'm sure we all have imagined it, but if that is just the tip of the iceberg,
well, of course
I'm
it is.
sure it is.
It makes me very sad that.
The internet in general, because I've still got an old Apple IIe here in my basement from the early 80s. That was, internet was a thing back then. It was dreadfully slow, but it was, the whole internet was developed for continuity of government. It was for military communications in the case of a mass power outage.
Mm-hmm.
And these aren't our cables in the ground. They're in public right of way most of the time. Yeah. These are this whole thing right here, right now is government property, essentially. It's being run through their property the entire time.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I kind of get a little bit annoyed with constant conspiracy theories about things being limited hangouts. Not that limited hangouts can never happen, but if you're just constantly going around saying that every little thing is a limited hangout, A, it's extremely depressing, but B, I think it describes a lot more intelligence and an ability to construct very sophisticated schemes. And I don't think that the people in government usually have this. Like, if you think about the schemes that they've actually pulled off, like the COVID lockdowns, all of their justifications and all of their machinations were actually extremely easy to point out and disprove. So I think if we're saying, oh, they're so capable of doing this very sophisticated limited hangout, and just every time we think we've got a little crumb, actually it's just the tip of the iceberg or it's completely fake.
Well, those aren't the only 2 tools in the toolbox.
I think that's a very black-pilled perspective and not really a helpful one.
Those aren't the only 2 tools in the toolbox. So the whole COVID lockdown thing, that was mass formation psychosis, right? Because that was, we put out a unified message on radio, TV, social media, and obviously, all the so-called influencers, your Hollywood types and your social media people, all those, they're going to parrot that stuff anyways, because it's going to come off as news and they're cutting edge and, hey, these are scary times. We're all in this together. Tune into me for some kind of nuance. That was just, that's a whole different thing. The limited hangout's going to be more of like it's a whistleblower that's coming out that it doesn't have the whole story. And it's for one purpose or another. It can either be to totally disturb us, to try to coax us into some kind of action, or they can then clamp down on our reaction to the news, or it can scare us another direction to where, we'll start behaving a certain way because, oh, they're doing this and that's scary. I'm staying away from that.
Right.
My point with bringing up the lockdowns is that for anybody who is doing real journalism or cared to look, all of the evidence about the lockdowns not being effective or about all the side effects of the vaccines, those were easily discoverable if you cared to look. So what we're really saying is that all of the serious journalists that there are, all the Glenn Greenwalds and Seymour Hershes of the world, they are all out there looking at the surveillance stuff and they're still not able to discover it. If you're saying that, what we got from Edward Snowden was, not well,
and then what we found out later. So exactly what year was it that Ed Snowden made his reveal?
It was 10 years ago, so 2013.
2013. Okay, so it wasn't until what 2015, 2016 we discovered what Verizon has something called a super cookie. That you can't freaking delete. So the tip of the iceberg angle to the Ed Snowden story would be that they didn't have to intercept the transmission, the data transmissions from the lines like Mark Klein told us they were doing. They were tapping into the fiber lines. They were putting these devices on these big internet hub centers, and all the data that was coming in, they could cipher off, one of these little things that fits in the palm of your hand. You could put that on one of the main fiber lines, and it would capture like 1.5 billion emails a day, something like that. I mean, they were collecting all the emails. Now, the real tip of the iceberg of that is they didn't have to do that illegally. All they had to do was call the guy that runs the company, and they give it to him willingly without a warrant.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what Zane's saying. Like, it does make it seem, I don't know, if you're looking at this as a limited hangout or whatever, and like people do this every single time, it does make it seem like there's just no possible way that we're ever going to win, and there's no possible way that we're ever going to make any advancements in the cause of liberty. So why even try? Because if they're that smart, if they have that much of a master plan, and they're that capable of carrying out their plan, then it's hopeless. So in my mind, I think, like, I maybe choose to believe either rightly or wrongly that Snowden was not an op, that it was that exactly what happened was what happened, and that no one planned for that to happen. So that might just be
absolutely. I can totally see that. I'm playing both sides of the fence on this one, because it's the one thing that they cannot account for, because you have these families that defined what wealth was, that created the word wealth. They created the concept of money. They have been in power this entire time. Same bloodline. It's not much of a family tree. It's more of a leaning bush, I guess. But and that's all they've done, is they've sat in these dark rooms in their ivory towers for probably thousands of years, definitely hundreds, and thought up how, what's going on in the minds of the peasants. How do we keep control of them? How is the spirit of rebellion spreading through the villages? How do we monitor this? Can we stoke a spirit of rebellion and see how fast it spreads? That kind of thing. And so they're watching that, but they can't account for the human element. There's freedom has a certain ring to it, that, anybody with a soul, it has a certain ring to it when you encounter it. It's like, hey, wait a second, that feels right. And they can't shut that off.
Yeah, I do like that. That is nice. That's a good warm, cozy feeling you just gave there, Steve. I like that.
Yeah.
Zane, what was the question you were going to ask before, the point you were going to make before?
Oh, I was just going to say, when we're, thinking about the legacy of Edward Snowden, and, what the average person thinks about the information that he revealed, I think that he definitely caused people to be way more aware that they are being spied on. But instead of getting really angry about it, like today, just people know that they're being spied on, and they're just okay with it. So on one hand, I guess it's better for people to know that they're being spied on than to not know. But it's also strange that it's like, if you went up to somebody now and told them all the details of what Snowden revealed in his leaks, they'd just be like, yeah, obviously the government's doing that. Everybody's spying on everybody. Duh. Who cares?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, what's really funny is what if you went up to them and you were like, hey, just so you know, I can see every single text message that you send to people, and I'm reading every single one. Just me. I'm reading them. Like, you'd get punched right in the face, or you get the cops called on you. But they're not going to do that with the government. They're going to be like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. That's always the argument. I'm not doing anything wrong, so why should I care? Okay, well, what if you're looking the person in the face who is reading all your messages? That changes things. Like, people just think of the government as this enigmatic, faceless blob. But if you put a face on it and you make it really personal, people will care. And that's the biggest issue with leaks of this size. And over time, you're right. All they do is say, of course the government's doing that. They're spying on everybody, yada, yada, yada. It's I don't know. It's people get numb, just like people get numb to basically everything that happens for an extended period of time, and it's that there is a black pill perspective in that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's the frog in a boiling pot of water.
Exactly. But this is the opposite of that. I didn't know this until today. Exactly 10 years ago, Ed Snowden uses Bitcoin to pay for servers that would host 200,000 documents exposing a vast illegal NSA spying campaign. Had no idea.
You said 1.5 million.
I didn't say he put all of them out there, Nick.
Fair enough. But I'd call you on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we
Go
go.
back.
Yeah. He
I wish
curated the servers, obviously.
Yes, 100%. But
He censored himself.
he censored himself for good
Sure
good
don't.
reason. But I think this is. I mean, did anybody else know this information before we just put this tweet out there?
I knew he was one of the early ones in Bitcoin. I didn't know he was using it exactly for his servers.
Okay.
I mean, 2013 wasn't that early. I had a roommate about the same time buying shit on Silk Road and playing Satoshi Dice.
Nick, that's early as crap, okay? Just because you were absurdly early doesn't mean that this wasn't early.
I sadly sat on the sidelines despite knowing I was absurdly early on it.
There you go. I bragged to my friends that I had to order a Roku from a Japanese website. I had to download a translator to go to a Japanese website and buy a Roku before they actually released here. That's one of my flexes. I still have that upstairs.
That's right. It was hard to buy, and I think it was also hard to manage your own keys at that point versus what you have now. But
yeah,
there was part of me back in those days who was like, maybe I could scrape together like $1,000 and buy it, and then I never bought anything. And
gosh, how nice would that have been?
That's why I distinctly remember being like, maybe this is one of those things you throw $1,000 at, but broke college student. And I was like, I don't have that money, and
yeah, that's
never
fair.
happened. And
yep,
sadly, because had I done that at that point, I wouldn't be working and I wouldn't be talking to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I learned about it in 2017. Didn't have any money to throw at it, and wish I'd had just a few $100.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I bought a couple $100 after the big run up in 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
2013, 2014, I was sitting at a bar with some friends. There were 5 of us total at the table. We're like, hey, we should all throw $1,000 at this thing, just kind of see where it goes. We all kind of laughed it off and said that was too much money to gamble with, as we all ate appetizers and drank pitchers of craft beer. Kicking myself for that one. Because my share of that take would be like $400,000 today.
Oh, yeah. Zach makes a great point. The next time to buy is now.
That's why I buy every week.
Every daggum week, y'all. Go out there
and
buy
Swan
some Bitcoin.
And set that DCA and buy every week.
There's another halving coming up soon, right?
Next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So buy before the halving. Buy before the next halving because
for sure. Zach, what do we got? What's the next article we got up there? Let's see. The 10th anniversary of Snowden's NSA revelations should serve as a reminder that whistleblowers who reveal official illegality and the journalists with whom they collaborate should be the subjects of admiration, not indictments. And that's just has not been the case. It hasn't been the case since Snowden. It wasn't the case before Snowden. There are very few
we talk
people.
Assange, or
we can talk Assange whenever you want because he blends in perfectly with the whole Snowden thing.
Right. And I saw some chatter going around today that there's like a last ditch effort in the High Court over in the UK to stop the extradition. And I think I think it was I don't know if it was MC servers or Discord server or something someone was putting out there that I think there, or maybe it was some Signal chats I'm in or something, that there's some concern by some of these activists in Europe that like there's not going to be enough groundswell in the US to actually do anything, and everyone's kind of just going to sit back and let whatever happens.
Seems about right.
If he is extradited versus making a big showing and getting out there for the at the courthouse and making it huge and maybe blasting around the fact that jury nullification exists. you know,
Mhm.
all kinds of stuff like that. And
I
there
mean,
needs
that
to be a big response if that extradition goes through, because, I mean, that's an incredibly dangerous precedent if that trial is allowed to happen and the U.S. courts,
100%.
which he'll go through the Eastern District of Virginia, and the whole jury will be, you know, the wives and relatives of CIA officers, and
Yep. No,
and it's gonna be,
that's something that the Libertarian Party should go to town on. That should be the number one focus because of how much media that it could potentially generate. I think that like what if he gets extradited to the U.S., I think that
we
should
need
be
thousands in the street at the first court date, thousands
yes.
are surrounding that courthouse.
I will 100% go.
Honestly,
I will
will
be there.
probably go.
I will be there if that happens because
So-
that needs to, I think that needs to be top priority.
Yeah.
Not that it like affects a ton of people, but it affects
This is it.
the ability
Yeah.
for people who have the option to whistleblow and to expose information. It gives them more courage to expose that information. And every time that one of these people gets their life ruined, it discourages anybody from wanting to do this kind of thing. And so it's a very important thing in exposing government corruption, government lies, government secrets, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, whistleblowing should absolutely be protected. You know, like I said, Geraldo Rivera, you know, drawing a map of where you are and where you're going on national TV, that's really bad. You know, Jane Fonda, for God's sakes, you know, she's on the cover of a magazine shooting at American airplanes in Vietnam.
What?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people don't know that, you know, but Gracie and Frank is hilarious on Netflix, you know, but yeah, Jane Fonda. Do what?
No, it's not.
Well, maybe I had a few beers that night, but it's just amazing how she still has a job at all. You know, when that was, she's on the cover of a magazine shooting at American airplanes over there.
I don't understand. Why was she over there? Why was she shooting at them? Why was this covered? And why is this on the cover of Time?
Yeah, there you go. Robert's all over it. Hanoi Jane. You can just search for that. That was, yeah.
She decided, either her or her publicist decided it was going to be a good idea for her to take a photo op with the Viet Cong. And one of the photos was her posing on an anti-aircraft gun. Now, I think if you ask her, she would say that she didn't know what it was, but it was an anti-aircraft gun.
Didn't know what it was. It's
that gun just points at the sky for.
Yeah, you're there with Victor Charlie. You know what's going on.
So yeah, the tweet that Zach had up earlier from Julian Assange's wife was referenced in this earlier that I was talking about.
So it's an important distinction. That's not whistleblowing. That's not, you know, what Ed Snowden did was to protect American citizens. You know, it might have put some government officials at risk, but they needed to be because we were at risk.
Yeah, so some Assange activists out of Washington's letting people that we know in the LP saying the U.S. really needs to get its shit together for the worst case scenario. We aren't nearly prepared enough, and the European and Australian activists are really concerned about it. They are able to pull massive numbers outside of Julian's prison, but the people here are so complacent in response to this Stella Assange tweet. So, you know, we can hope that they turn down the extradition. But I have a feeling that, you know, the Anglo-American establishment kind of always gets its way, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not always. If you do resist hard enough, sometimes they have to back down. I think one of the best examples of this is that they wanted vaccine passports so bad, and they did not get it. And they did not get
on the
it.
timeline they wanted, but let's not get to the point of saying they didn't get it yet. Right. I'm just saying, when it comes to something the U.S. and the British government either want, you know, the other one usually complies. So, as much as it's going to go back and forth, we all know, you know, we can be optimistic, but we know that that this extradition is going to happen sooner rather than later. And probably I kind of prefer it just happen sooner so we can take the fight on our streets here and make a scene here versus just continue this. It's over there. There's nothing we can really do, kind of thing, because it's going to end up over here, right? I mean, there's no way.
Plus, I don't trust the Brits to do anything good for him anyway. Like they're not the French. They're not going to go protest in the streets every 2 seconds. So like the Brits aren't going to be the ones to get this thing fixed. It's going to have to be us that make a huge stink about it when it comes over here.
No,
yeah, I don't trust anyone who eats baked beans for breakfast.
You're darn
Not
right.
with Chucky right. 3 in charge now.
That's one of the things. Michael Savage talks about that too, because he's been banned from Great Britain for his comments on Muslims and things like that. He's still not allowed in Great Britain. Period. They won't approve his passport, but he's like, "Oh, I'm missing out on all the fine cuisine and great dental care."
All right.
Now that the Crown Prince of the World Economic Forum is in charge.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, what do we got next, buddy? Are you still in here? Zach, I don't even see Zach in the. Zach may have dipped out. So
okay.
What do we do without our producer?
Well, I can just say that Ed Snowden stuff, the PRISM program, Operation Stellar Wind, and even the Echelon program. Well, the Echelon program, I think, predates the FISA.
Back at 1 second, he'll be back.
There you go. So I think FISA came after the Echelon program, if I'm not mistaken. FISA was 78, and then in 79, we got FEMA. So, it's one of those things. So it all sets like the pretense of the executive can claim emergency powers anytime, every time. That was when, the stepping stones were really set in place, was, the late 70s. So oddly enough.
Okay. I'm just noticing this. Who changed my name to NSAR work?
That's so good.
I'm assuming that was Zach.
I'm sure it was. I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't even know I had the power to do that. That's amazing.
I'm just noticing that. I'm like, I didn't do that. I did NSA.
Man.
That's a question. If we had the opportunity to bring Sarwak on, would we bring him on to this show?
Well, I mean, Sarwark's the one who brought Snowden to the convention, right? And then decided that he was going to hold the rights to the video of the speech that he donated to the convention.
There you go. So we could bring him on and we could put the Fed label over him and mute him, and we could just yell at him the whole time.
Oh, that's
basically. Oh, that'll be like whenever Josh Smith had John Hudak on Break the Cycle.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe we could get John Taffer on. Maybe John Taffer could yell at him for us.
Did you see that one when Josh Smith had Hudak on his show? He started it off and then just played music, just muted him out, and then brought in the whole Tower gang, and then just kicked them off the stream. He advertised. He's like, "Oh, yeah, when did that happen?" He's like, "Yeah, me and Hudak burying the hatchet. He's coming on Break the Cycle," and then he comes on and
wow!
Oh, right off the bat, he just.
It's a bold move. I'm not sure I approve. I'm not sure how professional that is, and just being seen as a jerk isn't kind of my go-to. But it is what it is. Here's a tweet from Aaron Matei. The Guardian's Mark Rice Oxley claims that since Snowden, the Guardian became the go-to publication for whistleblowers, synonymous with trustworthy, dogged, and sensitive investigative reporting. Yeah, not at all true. It was just Greenwald. It was nobody else there that was doing anything of the sort, because, as he states in the tweet, the Guardian aggressively smeared Julian Assange and ignored the OPCW whistleblowers. When I reported on the
Greenwald
OPCW
had to
leaks,
leave the Guardian and then start the Intercept, and then he got run out of there also for not bending the knee to the insanity.
Yes, he did.
That's when I think the Epoch Times, Epic Times, whatever. I think they got some Snowden interviews.
Because that was Epoch. That sounds better.
Yeah, there
Epoch sounds more epic.
Yeah, it's spelled like Epoch, but they call it the Epic Times.
I know. I don't. English is a stupid language.
Especially when it's spoken by British people in Asia. They've landed some interviews with Snowden that that were pretty. They seem to be carrying the torch. They really don't care who they piss off, because from what I understand, their Hong Kong headquarters habitually gets set on fire by China.
Jeez,
they have to rebuild it like every 2-3 months, something like that.
Can you imagine just building something knowing that you're going to have to rebuild it in 3 months?
Yeah. Well, that's why they have like different levels to it. I think they have like an underground level, and then they put a fire break in it. They set that on fire, then we do the underground. They burn the underground, then we build on top.
There are things that you can build with that can't be set on fire. Like, just build with those things. What do you think?
Yeah, but they're still dealing with printing presses too. They actually do print. They do print media still.
Okay. Well, paper lights on fire. I'm just, I understand that. That sucks. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. What do y'all think of like the state of whistleblowing in the United States today? Like, there's from what I can tell, in the past 10 years, not much has changed in how we treat whistleblowers and how people actually delve into the information that is presented to them. It seems like everybody freaked out over Snowden, and then since then, it's kind of been desensitized, like over and over and over. Like, the more whistleblowers there are, the more leaks there are, the less people care, it seems. Whereas like the NSA one, the Snowden one, was a huge one that everyone talked about for months. And then once there were other leaks afterwards, they seemed to get far less coverage. People seem to care way less. So I guess my question is, do you think it did more harm than good in public perception of exposing government illegalities?
Yes and no. On a local level, I think it's inspired people to speak up more frequently, more often. But once you're on a more of a grand scale, say a state level, a regional level, or even a national level, I think more people are discouraged because, in the wake of this, we saw the Obama Cash for Clunkers program. Who was, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the representative. But I mean, he was just a stud with just grilling these folks with these hard questions about, like, you knew you were supposed to destroy the engine blocks, but you still sold the cars anyways. And how much money did you make? All these junkyards that were making all this money on Cash for Clunkers, and nothing happened. You see, this has basically turned the U.S. House. Anytime they have a trial on anything, it's just a dog and pony show. Like, there's no repercussions. And kudos to Roger Clemens for not having respect for him. Because he was like, I'm a baseball player. Why the hell am I over here? What are you guys doing? So I think, we've seen that happen too. But I think on the local level, in certain areas of the country, people are quicker to speak up more often about grift, within their cities, counties, or even state. But once you get higher up on, like a regional or national level, people are going to hesitate more because they're like, wait a second, Snowden dropped this and he still got grilled. What's going to happen to me? What am I actually going to do to move the pile here? The needle's not going to move. There's going to be some temporary outrage. They're going to shift it. And, then they can put a new design on a beer can and no one gives a damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, what do you think, Zane? You better say something.
I mean, I guess being discouraged is at least farther along in the right direction than thinking that the government has your best interest at heart. Like, even if people have stopped caring about the details of the individual leaks, I think that, and I don't have any exact polling data to back this up, but I think far fewer people today would say that they trust the government in general than they would 20, 40, 60 years ago. And that's because of things like the Snowden leaks. And that's at least a move in the right direction, even if people aren't really acting on it.
I'd say there's a bigger portion that trust it less, and then another portion that trust it super even more.
Yep.
I don't know. It seems like there's that bifurcation, or at least like based on who's in charge, right? One side is, no, perfectly good. They only do what matters and cares. They only care about us. And then, the other side is worst thing ever. And that's swing back and forth.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is you don't hear a ton of outcry from either Republicans or Democrats about any of these people. Like, I don't know how much coverage does Julian Assange get or Edward Snowden get in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party? Like,
well, think about it. Like Trump was initially, if I remember right, he was initially on board with Snowden, Assange, because he was like, oh yes, Assange leaked this or did that or whatever, and thank you, Assange. And then all this stuff, all the extradition still continued under Trump there, and started under Trump was when they dragged him out of the embassy.
Yep.
And
that's when Steve Bannon was still his strategist, right? That he got steered off of that. Steve Bannon was a Navy guy, wasn't he?
Was he? I don't know the history of Steve Bannon all that well, but Trump had a perfect opportunity to take care of that based off what he said and what he folded to the deep state again on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, he folded on everything.
He had a chance to just put an end to the whole Assange thing there and then, but he let that happen and he let it escalate and was anti by the end there.
Yep.
No, it's like nobody, I guess these guys are political pawns as far as you can use them, but when there's no, it's all politics, and these guys out there putting the information out there,
yeah, I mean, I will say it is hard to not be black-pilled sometimes, especially when it comes to this particular subject matter, because nobody who's actually whistleblown has ever actually gotten off scot-free in my lifetime. Right.
You could say Ellsberg did. I mean,
that's not my lifetime.
There, but I know. I'm just saying, if we can talk about who got off, Ellsberg got off, but
but
that's
the only one.
Think about it. The only person prosecuted for the torture program was John Kiriakou, who leaked the fact that the torture program was going on.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only person prosecuted for that.
But, then you have not quite an international scale, but
then Ron DeSantis, who was quite possibly involved on the torture, running for president. Right.
There you go. And then you got the the Project Veritas, the Planned Parenthood stuff. The videos of the people doing the play fights with the aborted babies, and you got the executives talking about how they're buying a Ferrari because they're selling baby kidneys to China and all this crap. The people that film the videos are going to jail.
Yep.
So it's you see enough of that. Yeah, it's kind of hard to feel like you can make a difference. That's what I'm saying. It's like on a grand scale. But on a local level, you're seeing hey, my town's a lot like that town. I know those guys.
Yeah.
I went to school with their kids. I know who they are. I bump into them at the checkout line at the grocery store. That's one of, at least for me. I mean, that's one of those things kind of fired me up. Is like, wait a second. There's people that tell me what to do with my property, my money, my life, how I'm supposed to act in public, all this kind of stuff. And if they're anything like this that I'm seeing that these people are telling me about, hey, these are the people that are running the show. If the people that I know that are running some kind of show are doing that kind of thing, I know how to reach out and touch them. So it motivated me, at least on a small level. Now on a grand scale, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you've got this machine that's 200-300 years old. The media machine, Operation Mockingbird was late 60s. So these people have been integrated in infiltrating our media for 50, 60 years now. They killed a president, for God's sakes. Blew his head off during a parade. Where were the riots?
Yeah.
So, you see that. We're coming up on 60 years of that, I think. And, and then guys like Ed Snowden, they didn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to drag this stuff into the light.
Yeah. Yep. Completely agree. That can be really hard to do too. And I mean, Robert's definitely right. Zoning boards, education boards, election boards, be there and get involved. Because as the Libertarian Party, like, very much believes things start on a local level, and that's kind of how it has to go, because we don't have enough power to
Run for city council,
we don't have enough power to make change at a national level at the moment. You know, we don't have the type of media that can coordinate mass campaigns across international borders around the globe. So you get, things have to start at the local level in order to make change, and that change will be slow. The change will happen a long time from now, but it could happen much sooner at your local level. Like, it's not going to spread overnight to all the surrounding counties, surrounding cities, all that kind of stuff. But you could be living in a much freer place, in a place that, you know, respects people for pointing out things, corruption that the government does. So
Absolutely. And there's an asium, when you get into the IT crowd, if you ever get into like computer programming, for instance, it's kind of a joke, but it was think globally, act locally. And that it's that kind of thing. If you can foster, just make your neighborhood the world you want to live in.
Yep.
And that's how it starts. It's just one step at a time. That's all you can affect.
It's what I'm doing in Montana rather than Dunwoody, Georgia.
Remember, it's the dedicated minorities that get their way, right? The complacent majorities generally don't. That's why you have subsidized sugar industries. I mean, who benefits from that? The sugar subsidies keeping sugar, enticing sugar production in the U.S., which then leads to the red tides of algae coming off of Lake Okeechobee there to complete environmental disasters. But hey, a couple people get their money and everyone else is complacent about it. So
yeah,
the red algae too is the hypoxic zones that are created from our fertilizer runoffs.
Right. I'm saying in that specific instance there, right? I mean, it's a couple companies running sugar production in South Florida there, making their money, causing an environmental disaster there that everyone's like, hey, there's an environmental disaster here. I wonder why. And it's kind of like, because you're subsidizing sugar production there. But hey, everyone else is complacent about that, and a couple people get rich. Small minorities kind of get their way, and that's
red algae. Have you ever had sweet tarts? They're freaking fantastic, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason we're subsidizing tobacco growers at the same time we're running huge public service campaigns telling people to not smoke.
Right.
Exactly.
Small minorities get, small dedicated minorities. If you do it right, you get your way more than the complacent majority. That's just.
I like that phraseology you got there. That's good.
Yeah.
Zach, do you have something else for us? I see something down there. What do we got here?
There we go. I put that in the chat. We were talking about how the military was a drain on local resources. We were talking about how, the U.S. military owns more golf courses than anyone else, all this kind of stuff. And that was something that came to my mind when you said that. I was like, hey, how about that time the U.S. Marines drank all the beer in an Icelandic city?
All right, what city was it in Iceland, though?
It had to be Reykjavik. That's the only big city there. There's Reykjavik.
It says city, though. It could be a smaller city in the capital region. I mean, what city?
There aren't any. It's Reykjavik.
Oh, it was Reykjavik.
It has to be. There's only one other city. It's on the other side, which would make any sense for a military.
Well, there's several cities in the capital area. The suburbs of Reykjavik.
Not really. I'm going there in August.
I've been there. I've driven it. That's
those aren't cities, man. Those are tiny little villages, basically.
I'm not.
Sounds like a great place for a military base.
Right.
That is.
Yeah, there you go. So the city has a population of 120,000, and then you got 7,000 military members come in there and drink all the beer. And I've brought this up so many times. I've talked to a few Marines that were there for that training op, and it wasn't just the beer; it was all the alcohol. Like they were paying people. Like they're like, oh well, I have a cousin that lives up in go get it now.
Goodness gracious! I mean, I believe it. I think Reykjavik has probably grown since then quite a bit, and I don't know if that would happen nowadays because when I've been to Reykjavik, people get hammered. That place is a drinking town at this point. So that may have been the igniter for it. Was them running out of alcohol, and now they have a surplus of it, so they got to drink it up. You know.
Well, you
Yeah.
got to be hammered to drink that fermented shark, to eat that fermented shark stuff.
Oh God.
Shark stuff or the whale stuff? Both.
The
Both.
shark stuff that they like bury in the ground and pee on and whatever else.
Well, that stuff is hard. Have you ever smelled it?
No, I avoided that.
Dude, it is. I mean, you could puke just from smelling it. I can't believe people put that in their mouth. It is.
I have friends that eat
I
pickled
can't believe
herring
they-
around Christmas.
I can't believe they figured out how to do that. Like, yeah, so we're gonna kill this shark that we found really deep in the ocean, and we found out that its skin is toxic. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bury it and pee on it, and then we're gonna dig it up and hang it until it's dry, and then cut it up and eat it. I don't know.
Oh man, that sounds
I want to know
delectable.
I want to know how drunk you had to have been to come up with that process.
Fair. All right, y'all. I've got 3 more tabs to share for my thing. First one, the last 2 are fun. The first one is just interesting to me.
There you go. I was going to bring something up too. So I've got a palate cleanser in the middle. If you just
Sweet, let's
Let me
do
know
it. This is interesting.
All of Southeast
Oh,
Quebec.
dadgummit. It's playing on my dadgum. There we go.
External
Did y'all
speaker.
get audio?
I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounded like
Insane.
Alex Jones.
Look at that.
Insane.
Those are the fires
Look at
starting in Canada
The whole thing.
almost simultaneously.
All at once.
That's climate change doing that.
Today. And this is on top of Nova Scotia, New Jersey, and
Nova
the
Scotia.
entire western side of Canada burning.
I mean, what
Nova
the heck
Scotia.
is that?
It's all that a boot.
Global warming.
Like, yeah, for those listening, all these fires, there were about, I don't know, 15 to 17 different fires that all started on the same day in completely different parts of Canada.
Climate change causes spontaneous ignitions.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like what happened in California a few years ago when
Spontaneous
we're believe
thinkers.
that there was one ne'er-do-well that threw a cigarette butt on the side of a walking trail that caught a third of the state on fire. That I'm not buying it.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. What do you got to share, Stephen?
So I was just going to say, this week was the D-Day anniversary. D-Day is often heralded as the hallmark of the greatest generation. And we've lost a lot since the so-called greatest generation. So I was going to ask you guys, what do you think is some random act or random duty, random, task of masculinity, femininity, or just citizenry that you think that is lost, has been lost since then, that definitely should come back? What do you think? Men aren't men anymore. We got the man buns, we got the soy lattes, all that kind of stuff. Just something that comes to mind, just some random thing of, what are men doing now that they didn't do that they should? Same thing with women. Just, anything come to mind on that?
I think the idea of avoiding pain and struggle at all costs is a terrible way to live life. And I think a lot of how we live now is convenience and avoiding any type of struggle, especially physical struggle. I think going through physical pain and going through, whether it's working out or whether it's actually, getting out there and like hiking the woods or building stuff or just like something that makes you sweat and work for something that you have, I think is definitely getting lost.
That's a growing trend too. It's like I'm just going to take the path of least resistance. I'm going to do my yoga. I'm going to sip my latte, and I'm just going to, empty my mind. I'm going to empty myself.
Here's the 4-step solution, right? Lift weights, eat steaks, stack sats, print cats.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Also,
I'll keep it simple too. I see a lot of guys walking on the inside of the sidewalk. You know, letting their ladies be on the outside. You know, where the cars are running, all the guys on the bicycles, all that kind of thing. It's like, dude, protect your lady.
Yeah.
You know, just basic instinct level stuff. Just like, you know, put yourself between your lady and the danger. Something like that. Like, that's just so lost these days.
100%. I think I was talking about this with a neighbor out here yesterday. We took a drive together, and one thing that I think has shifted is people start trying to think the purpose of living is to be happy. And I think that the more you try to be happy, the less happy you're going to be. I think people have forgotten that purpose is what drives you and what makes you happy and what makes you feel fulfilled. And so, like, I think there was, like, that generation knew that in a way that this generation does not, where they knew their purpose. They knew what they had to do, even if what they had to do was sold to them via a lie. They knew, like, they had that purpose, and they knew that purpose was the reason they were there. And if the reason you think you're here on earth is to be happy and is to find happiness, you will never be happy.
There you go.
That's my thought.
Yeah, because a lot of the times you're resisting whatever makes you unhappy. You know, and that's, I'm going to quote Napoleon Hill here. You know, the Think and Grow Rich guy. But it's, you know, whatever you resist persists. So if your mind is focused the whole time on, like, I'm going to avoid this because it makes me unhappy, well, that thing is still in your goal. That thing is still in your mindset. Like, oh, I want to be debt free one day. The word debt is in your goal. Like, you're telling yourself every time you look in the mirror, the word debt instead of money, prosperity. You know, so it's just they understood the mindset. They understood the focus. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's definitely been lost.
Yeah. Zane, you got anything?
I mean, all of you being my elders here, I'm not sure how much perspective I have. I guess I will.
That's Zane's polite way of saying we're old farts.
You're old, but
back in Normandy, I was there.
It's pretty common for, you know, each generation to complain about generations behind them. Like, there are quotes from, like, the 1600s talking about kids these days, how none of them want to work hard. But on the same token, like, we're seeing these skyrocketing rates of, like, anxiety and depression among younger people. And I don't think that that's entirely disconnected from some behavior that's more common now than it was 40 or 60 or 80 years ago, however long you want to go back.
Well, I think there's nihilism.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jake, you're totally right about, you know, the difference between happiness and purpose. And I think that, you know, the decline in church attendance, I would say, I mean, you can either believe it or not, but if you believe that, you know, if you believe in God who has a purpose for your life and your aim is to live in concert with that gives you a very clear direction in your life that's very different from, you know, how do I, you know, maximize my utility today. That's
great. Dedication, devotion to a higher purpose, something that's greater than you in your physical form, you know, and that's ties into what Jake was saying too about the, you know, pain before pleasure. You know, the Buddhists got this right. The Taoists got this right. And it's not an inherently religious thing, but it's just pain does come before pleasure. Because otherwise, what is pleasure?
Yep.
You know, you don't have an accurate gauge of you know, what it is to be happy unless you've suffered a little bit to deserve it.
Yep. Steven, good thing to bring up, man. I appreciate it. Zach, It looks like you have one more thing. Put that up. Then I've got two and we'll end it. Oh, shoot. Trump indicted by federal grand jury for mishandling classified material at Mar-a-Lago estate.
They really want to reelect him president, don't they?
They could ignore this guy. They could have turned their backs on him, and he would have gone away.
Oh, hang on. Yep. Spike has thoughts. Thoughts on the Trump indictment. This will likely help his chance of getting reelected. If that happens and he immediately orders an end to his prosecution, as well as the prosecution of Biden for his mishandled classified docs, will progressive continue to hold up democracy as an article of faith? Trump knew the FBI spied on him in 2016, and yet while he was in office, he signed off on giving them record levels of funding and authority. He refused to pardon Assange, who also faces prosecution under the Espionage Act. He promised to drain the swamp and instead tried to be the king of the swamp creatures. If he's reelected, will he try to actually drain it or try to co-opt it again in vain? Man.
So my first thought on the first statement by Spike there, would they potentially think that democracy might be the god that failed?
They would not ever think that. They'll never think that. Nick, come on, man. A grand jury will indict a sandwich. Thanks, Robert. That was good. Yeah, interesting breaking news. I like it. Yeah, I mean, the more they put Trump in the news, the more likely he's going to get reelected. It's just absurd.
It's the Jordan Belfort thing of there is no such thing as bad press.
Yeah, how do they
You
not
could
understand?
ignore him, and he'd be over on Truth Social, truthing his truths, and nobody would be paying attention.
Yes.
Which, oddly enough, do you know the Russian word for truth?
What? Lie?
Pravda.
Oh, yeah.
That was Stalin's newspaper, y'all.
What?
Pravda.
Pravda. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's
Jake's head.
Yeah, truth. You know, so Stalin pioneered putting out Truth Social, and now Trump is reinventing it in 2023.
Yeah, that's
funny
interesting.
how that happens.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, I did this video just for you. Literally, if anyone else gets it, fine. But Nick, I brought this up just for you. I don't know if you've seen it, but here we go.
Geez.
Guys. It's a beaver. It's a beaver at fucking Buc-ee's. I'm so happy this moment. Also,
Yes.
baby geese. But it's a fucking beaver at Buc-ee's.
Did you see the comment that said that the beaver was the Buc-ee's regional manager?
That's great. So that one was just for Nick. I decided that we're going to end these things on just some good laughs, just so we don't end being depressed about all the things we talk about. And so this one, I don't know if anybody's seen this. It has 2.4 million views on Instagram, so I'm sure some people have seen it. It just makes me laugh every single time I see it. So here we go.
Oh God, I don't even know if I've got my camera on. Yeah, I have. Oh, I've seen a bit now. Oh my God. Oh my God. Meow, my God. What the fuck? I can't.
Oh, that's great.
Oh God. What was that?
I love that. I love that he just cannot contain his joy in that moment. It is wonderful. Yeah, for anybody who's still watching, thank y'all so much for tuning in to tonight's episode. Go follow LP Georgia on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Go to our website if you need more information, lpgeorgia.com/join. We do this every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain, where I am for the summer. And we try to release the Free Georgia podcast once a week on Tuesday morning on podcast form and Monday night on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Also, make sure go subscribe to our Rumble channel, because we have strikes on YouTube. You never know when we're going to get censored on here.
We got more tonight for sure.
I have a feeling we get throttled, and not a lot. We get way more views on Rumble than we ever do on YouTube. So if you go to Rumble, you might have a better chance of chatting with people who enjoy this kind of stuff. So head on over to Rumble. Steve, Nick, Zane, you got anything to say before we close this out?
Range Day is coming up.
Range Day is coming up.
Day.
All right. When is that? Do you know?
I have no idea. It might be on the website. There's tickets around somewhere.
Okay.
That's with Edgar, who's been on the Free Georgia podcast with Jake before. He did last year's range day, taught everyone a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
He was at the
Osprey
Great
Shooting
Create.
Solutions. Yeah.
So go out there, have a fun time with a bunch of other people. Like last year, we had a whole bunch of people who weren't even associated, like who we'd never seen with the party, seen around
love it.
before. Come on out. They just said, yeah, let's do this. So they provide a great value with it. There it is. Yeah. The 29th, $50. That's a great price for what's being offered there by Edgar. I recommend you, everyone in Georgia, buy your ticket now and get out while you have a chance. Get out there.
Heck yeah.
Go learn from the best.
He's one of the
doesn't
best.
Matter. So
yes, he
doesn't
is.
matter how good you think you are. He's going to tell you where you need to improve. So
he will absolutely. He's very forthright in that kind of information.
You mean you can't just yell "break yourself" and then just hang your hand sideways in the? No.
Thanks for bringing that up, Nick. Zane, Steven, y'all got anything for me? For anybody else?
So no, I was just going to say, consider joining the Libertarian Party of Georgia. If you're listening and you're kind of on the sidelines, whatever. Look, if you got the cost of a Netflix subscription, it goes to use, so we can put on things like this, the shooting event coming up, many other things. We have a dedicated core of individuals that basically work for free. Just we use the money just to do cool stuff, and it is a labor of love for a lot of us. And we need help. We need fuel. So if you can provide that, that would be great.
Heck yeah. Completely agree. And if you don't happen to be in Georgia and you're watching this show, join your local Libertarian Party, your state party, the national party. Do some work in your town and your local community. Yeah. Zane, you got anything for us?
No, I think we've done enough grifting for the night.
All right, y'all. Well, tune in every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you next time. Peace.